وعليه الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. We extend our condolences to the Imam of our time upon the Shahadat of Rasulullah, Imam Hasan Mushtaba and Imam Mirza alayhi salam. These are the last days of Safar, in which we commemorate the Shahadat of three Masumin. According to a narration, it's also the last of Safar, Shahadat of Imam Raza, and also 17th of Safar is according to a narration that the Shahadat of Imam Raza is there as well. However, in Mashhad, in the Haram, they commemorate on the last of Safar. In Mashhad, in Haram, the last of Safar is usually commemorated. So these are the final days of the culmination of season of the Azadari, Muharram and Safar, and usually with the Shahadat of Imam Hasan Askari, which is 8th of Rabi, that's the last day we tend to do the days of huzn and sorrow, and then on the 9th, which is the beginning of the Imamat of the 12th Imam, we tend to celebrate or come out of these days of sorrow and huzn. Tomorrow we'll discuss a bit more in regards to what have we achieved after these 2 months and 8 days, or these 2 months of Azadari. Mashallah, these days we have lots of majalises in houses, outside centers, online, different speakers. There's a lot of listening, but the point is of the action. We have to bring what we have listened in action, in practice. That's something that we all, I'm including myself, tend to lack, especially as we live in the day of information. There are so many reels of hadith and riwayat, or this clip from this Maulana, that clip from that Maulana, and we go through so many that we sometimes we don't even remember. Last night there was something very interesting. I saw a clip on Instagram of beautiful hadith, but I don't recollect because it's just gone. The way it comes, the same way it goes, right? But if it comes with good intention, inshallah, good intention is there. It comes with pain, difficulties. As they say, ilm always requires it that one should struggle for it, strive for it. Then that ilm remains. Easy coming is not possible. It will come, but it is gonna fade away very quickly. So inshallah, maybe tomorrow we'll reflect a bit more, because today is a very important day, which is the day of Imam Hasan Mushtaba alayhi salam. Few things I want to give the same theme which we discussed last night, which was in regards to justice, in regards to adalat. Justice is a universal phenomena accepted by all human beings. Justice is something is indebted. It is in our fitra. If we see something unjust, if we see something, not proper, we try to fix that. We like to see things in its proper place. That's something natural. And that is actually a definition of justice itself, that seeing things or doing things or placing things in the proper place. If this, for example, banner, which is beautiful, if it's a bit tilted, nobody will like that. Everybody wants to, even a child will say that this is something wrong. They want to put it right. That's something in us, in all human beings. And that is one of the reasons the Quran points out to, that the Prophet have been sent. It is in order that mankind establish justice through the aid and help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah have created us free and have given us choice, and with choice we have to accept. If Allah wanted everything to be forced, then where is the question of hell and heaven? Everybody will be forced to pray, everybody will be forced to fast, everybody will go in Jannah. Allah created us free, and with this freedom that we have, He pointed us to the path, to the sabil, and taught us what is right and wrong. And through that, with our choice, we go towards, the Jannah, towards acquiring the rewards that we have. So the same way Allah is Adil. One of the names of Allah is Adil, and He is Adil. The name of Allah itself is Adil. And everything that He has created is just. And we gave the example of nature. When you look at nature, which Allah have created, is perfect. And that's why we like to be in surrounded by nature, because there is adalat around. Wherever there is adalat and justice, we want to be in that environment. If there is oppression or fighting or ikhtilaf, which comes because of justice not being there, we don't like to be in that environment. Whether that be at workplace, if some unjust, favoritism, politics going on at workplace, life becomes miserable. The boss is favoring that person or that person, because there's no justice there. You would like to resign. You don't like to stay in that place. And not just upon you, but even if you see somebody, you say, what type of these people? I don't want to work with these people, right? Because we would love to be in an environment, in a place where there is adalat, where there is justice. Otherwise, naturally, we don't feel right. It is in our fitrat, right? So, prophets have been sent to refine our fitrat, our nature, to bring out the best from us. That's the reason the prophet have been sent. And as we recited the verse of Surah Hadid, prophet been sent with bayanat, which they say that bayanat actually means miracles and proofs, in order to prove them. Prophets and Allah have that power to do something what they want, but Allah, out of His mercy, gave the choice and ikhtiyar to the people. The people have to support the prophet, right? And then bayanat and mizan, Allah have given the mizan, the balance, and kitab, and the book. So these three elements are for what? In order to establish justice, in order that we learn what justice is, in order that our life become a life of a just life. Because through the book, through the kitab, we will be able to establish justice in our life and in our family's life, in our community life, and that's how it increases, right? Expands. So through the book, kitab teaches us to be just. The rules that are there, for example, prayers. One of the reasons of our prayers, apart from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, apart from having the hereafter, Jannah, or whatever you want to name it, it is in order that we live like a person who is just. That's what it teaches. Everything. The kitab and the implementation of the book in our life and in our family's life, the way of distribution of inheritance. It's adalat, how it should be distributed. To the extent mustahabbat, even, those things which are recommended, are actually promoting to have a well-balanced life. From the commands of eating and drinking, leave aside the wajibat, as in fasting. From the mustahabbat of eating and drinking and sleeping and all that, is to have a life which is balanced. That's why we said that a true person who is considered to be shuja, a courageous person, is the one who have the balance of mercy and at the same time strength. If a person just have strength, we're not going to call this person shuja, he will become a zalim because he has too much of strength and power, right? No, a person who have mercy and at the same time strength, and that perfect balance, that's the Aristotelian ethics. You discuss in Aristotelian ethics. There's a book by Aristotle in which he discussed the balance of the pros and cons, or the positive or negative qualities, attributes or qualities if we are talking about. So a perfect balanced life. And that happens through the teachings of the Prophet, through the book which is the Quran, right? And through that we establish justice in us and around us. So whether that be the peace treaty of Imam Hasan Mushtaba alayhi salam, which we'll discuss now, or whether that be the battle of Imam Hussein in Karbala, both is for that reason, that the Quran remains, that Islam remains, that the justice of Allah remains. And Amirul Mu'mineen the same way. As we said, that one of the reasons why Malik Ashtar tells to Amirul Mu'mineen that people are vouching or going behind Muawiyah is because he just give them money and buy them and make them rich. But when it comes to Ali, he's just He's very adil. Even when it comes to his own family, Aqil, the most example is there. He's very just. So whenever a person talks about justice, people leave that person. Right? He's unable to work with that person because he's just. Right? And just in the margin, even when we ask Allah, we say, Ilahi tu'amilna bifadlik. Oh Allah, treat me with your fazl. If you treat me with the justice, we will be gone. We will be nowhere. We will not be able to reach Jannah. Because we make so many mistakes. And that's why among the Shi'i particularly, justice is one of the usul ad-din. Because we have seen what oppression is. There's injustice is taking place against our imams. The Khilafat was usurped. What happened to the daughter of the Prophet? What happened to Imam Hasan? What happened to Imam Hussein? We know that. Even after that, how, and even today as well, when you look at it, even today, we find there is injustice is taking place. There is no freedom of azadari, whether that be most civilized and educated countries such as Malaysia. Advanced democracy, what you name it. But when it comes to azadari, you're not allowed. Why? Freedom of religion is not there. Is this justice that a person is not allowed to do azadari for Imam Hussein? Where is the justice? Right. So even today we find injustices, and we understand that, and that's why in order that we have and this is one of the reason the 12th Imam says Adlul Muntazar. That's what we call him. The Imam Zaman is the awaiting justice. He's awaiting. So that we have that awareness of justice, and that we be the people of that's why in theology, we are known as the Adliye. The Imamiyas are known as the Adliye. Mu'tazilites, the Mu'tazile and the Ash'ari, and these two different categories that are there in theological schools. Mu'tazilites are also known as the Adliye, those who vouch for justice. Ash'ari were somebody who says everything that happens is because of Allah, for example. Even Yazid, what he did, for example, was okay, that type of mentality. But we say no. We are the people of Adliya. And the people of Adliya, people who vouch for justice, are intellectual people, and have that humanity in them, that they will voice against injustices that are taking place. It is very natural in them, right? So here, when we look at, Imam Hasan and Mujtaba alayhi salam and the peace treaty, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, was in order that this adl, that justice remains, that Quran remains. As we all know that, when Amirul Mu'mineen, let's do a bit of history here, when Amirul Mu'mineen becomes the Khalifa and Muawiyah was the governor in Sham, he did not step down. Right? If somebody becomes a Khalifa and want to replace a governor in the different Islamic states, he has the right to do that because he is the Khalifa of the time, and that has been the case in history. But he did not step down, but rather he stayed. And then the whole history, as you are aware of, the Battle of Siffin takes place. And in the Battle of Siffin as well, where the arbitration, where they tricked Amirul Mu'mineen. And then right after the Battle of Siffin, we have the Battle of Nahrawan, which is with the Khawarij. So Amirul Mu'mineen have clearly mentioned that, I'm unhappy and I am not willing to surrender to this trickery that Muawiyah have done. But however, there's another group of people, or who are the Khawarij. They were doing genocide, injustices were taking place, babies were being killed, pregnant women were being killed. If you look at it in the history, Amirul Mu'mineen said, this is very important right now, I need to attend to this. And then he fought against the Khawarij. And right after the battle of Khawarij, you have the incident of, Shahadat of Amirul Mu'mineen takes place. And Imam Hasan and Mujtaba, whose Shahadat we are commemorating today, they give bayat to Imam Hasan and he becomes a Khalifa. Now, obviously, the methodology of ruling the Khilafat of Amirul Mu'mineen was that his intention was that he's going to go back to fight with Muawiyah again, right? The same way as, for example, when Prophet, before he died, he mobilize people to go fight against the Romans, the Battle of Tabuk. But he returned back, and then he did not. Then whoever becomes the Khalifa, they inquires to Amirul Mu'min, what shall we do? Amirul Mu'min said that, well, this was something the Prophet have decided to do. We should carry on. We cannot, have a difference of opinion in regards to that. He advised, Amirul Mu'min advised that way to the first Khalifa of that. So here the same way, Amirul Mu'minin had a fight with Muawiyah in Siffin, and then he said, I'm going to come back. Then Imam Hasan Mushtaba decided to go back to basically fight with the Shamis, with the Muawiyah. But as we all know, just a recap on the history, that how he was betrayed. Last night I said Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, who was the cousin, not Abdullah ibn Abbas. It was a slip of the tongue. Last night I said Abdullah ibn Abbas. No, it was Ubaydullah ibn Abbas who betrayed, who was bought with thousands of soldiers who came to support Imam Hasan to fight against Muawiyah. Muawiyah bought him, and he went to the side of Muawiyah. So there was no support for Imam Hasan Mushtaba, number one, to continue or to fight with Muawiyah, and this was after so many times he was asked to perform a peace. Even till the last minute, it was it was from Muawiyah that we will send you a paper, blank paper, you write it down, and let's have an accord, let's have a pact. And then in that pact, Imam Hasan Mushtaba clearly wrote these 5 things, which were the injustices that were taking place at that time. And he wanted that to be established, to be carried out. Number one, first and foremost, that the Muawiyah will act in according to the Quran and Sunnah. The first condition which Imam Hasan Mushtaba placed. What does this tell us? This tells us that at present Muawiyah is not acting according to Quran and Sunnah. Why he's making condition? If he's acting according to Quran and Sunnah, there's no reason for him to make a condition as such. So this clearly unveils, the way Muawiyah was ruling. And it was very important to unveil that. And Imam Hasan Mushtaba places that condition, number one. When we are talking about Quran and Sunnah, the question of justice comes, and injustices that were taking place, such as, for example, that the ashab of Rasulullah were abandoned. The persecution against the followers of Ahlul Bayt were openly taking place. So he puts the condition that, there should be no persecution and oppression against the lovers of Amirul Mu'minin. They should not be persecuted. Their property should not be usurped, which was going on at that time. He placed that as a second condition. The third condition, he says that the cursing that is taking place on the pulpits in Al-Ghadir, which is Allama Amini, is a very famous work, is a magnum opus on all riwayat and traditions in relation to Ghadir. Allama Amini have compiled it, a great scholar, a very fascinating scholar who traveled, even he went to India as well, in order to gather, in order to look, in order to research. A scholar who, in terms of the manaviyat and spirituality, is renowned, right? Our ulama and our scholars, apart from being so much strong in terms of their research, in terms of their knowledge and understanding, they also have the element of manaviyat and spirituality. Just to mention one little story of Allama Amini for our little ones, there was a person who was suffering, his family member was suffering. And then he comes to, and which is usually the case, you tell the religious people, the ulama, Maulana, people who are pious in our community, elderly people, obviously because of their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have maintained their iman much more than me as I am young, but people who are older, they have done more sajdas than me. That's how we should treat our elders. That's how our Imam have taught. You should always look the other person as better than oneself. When you look at child, The fourth Imam says, when you look at a young person, you should say that this person have committed less sins than me because he is younger than me. When you look at an older person, you should say this person have done more worship than me. The humility and the humbleness which the fourth Imam is teaching us. And then imagine if that atmosphere is in a masjid or in a house, how beautiful it is. Which naturally through akhlaq, as Allah says that He does command for adl wal ihsan. This is actually ihsan. Through ihsan, the adalat is also established. Through good behavior. The adalat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what is the adalat? To be just is that to treat a person who is alert with respect. And also a young person, right? So Allama Amini, person comes to his house and he says that this is the problem, this is the issue, give me something. He writes, give me some sort of dua. So he writes something and he gives it to him. And this man he takes and he puts that dua, with that person who was ill. He got shifa. And they said, wow, there must be some strong dua within it. That's how we tend to think that, when we say about dua, we think that, some dua, mujarrab, very strong, some magical power maybe this dua have. And that's another thing which the fourth Imam says, that Allah have hidden, 3 things in 3 things or 4 things in 4 things. For example, Allah, have hidden the azab of Allah in the sin itself. Don't look at this and as a small sin or a big sin. The azab of Allah is in sins. The awliya of Allah is hidden in men. Don't look at a person having a amama or a white beard or tasbih in the hand. Oh, this must be a waliullah. No, it's hidden among men. We don't know who is a waliullah. So respect each and every human being, right? And the du'as, acceptance of du'as are in du'as. Don't see like, big dua or small dua or some ajib or gharib dua should be there, 1,000 times I have to say something so on. The acceptance is in dua. So this man, he opens and it was just written Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The effect is of the nafs which writes, the ruhaniyat and the manawiyat. A personality like Allama Amini, if he just writes that, everything is in there. The shifa is in there. So the point is that manaviyat have to develop in us. We do a lot of du'as, we do a lot of ziyarat. If we don't bring that spirituality, manaviyat, and acting on the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we may get lucky. Right? So we have to act. I'm just opening the discussion of margin a bit more because it's very important, It's very important that we have to act. It's very easy to recite, Noha. It's very easy to do Matam. It's very easy to, do Marsiya. It's very easy to, distribute Tabarruk, donate. But it's very difficult to act upon the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. It's not easy. That's why sometimes we get in a state of a shock. Oh, this person. Oh, he comes to ziyarat, he cries so much. But at the same time, this is how he treats his family in the house. We'll be like, what? How can they? Oh, this is how he behaves outside. Or this is how that person is. Why? Because the question of acting is not there. We have many people, I have heard, like, for example, they say, oh, only when the matam comes, they will come inside. The speech is gone and all that. Only at the time of matam, the young people will come. Because it's very easy to do matam. Right? It's very easy to show that sort of, perhaps, we are cheating ourselves. We're saying, I'm a true lover of Imam Hussain. I'm doing strong matam and I'm not acting upon. Fifth Imam says that there is no favoritism between us and Allah. It is only because of our action Allah have chosen us. And there is no favoritism between us and our Shias. It is only because of their action they will come to us, near to us. So acting upon what Ahlul Bayt is asking us is very difficult. It's very important to be present here. If that true love is there, a person will be here from the beginning of Hadith-e-Kisa. That's when the Majlis starts. The Hadith-e-Kisa to the Majlis is like Surah Fatiha to the Quran. As they say, the whole Quran is in Fatiha. The whole Fatiha is in Bismillah. And the whole Bismillah is the Nuqta Tat al-Ba. The whole Majlis is in Hadith-e Kisa. And the whole Hadith-e Kisa is in Fatima. So if you miss out on Hadith-e Kisa, thinking, oh, abhi to Hadith-e Kisa shuru hui hai. Then there will be a Marsiya, Salam, Soz. Because in Hadith-e Kisa, you have the zikr of all of the Ahl Bayt. In Majlis Salam, Marsiya to Imam Hasan, usually the Marsiya will be more focused towards Imam Hasan. But in Hadith-e Kisa is Allah, Jibraeel, all of the Panjatan is there. That's the Fatiha of Majlis. That's the beginning, that's where it starts. The most beautiful part of the Majlis is that. As we have the Aqidah belief that, Sayyida comes in the Majlis, right? She's not going to come after, abhi to Hadith-e Kisa chal rahi hai, no? She will be there before Hadith-e Kisa, right? So it's very important to pay attention to these things. If we just come at the time of Matam, then all of these things which the Maulana or Sheikh or whatever, in all 45 minutes there could be one point that might wake me up. Especially if I'm giving a speech, it's all, not that sort of interesting, but at least in this there will be one point that you can connect. Even I may not be, because it is not possible that if a person comes with the intention of pleasing Ahl Bayt and rectifying oneself, and Allah will not give that person anything in this majlis. It's not possible. If he has, no matter who is speaking, if a person comes with the intention of Ahl Bayt, Allah will teach him. Because he has come here for the Qurb Ilahi. Ittaqullah wa yu'allimukum Allah. Have taqwa of Allah and Allah will teach you. Allah will open the heart, right? So it's very important that we, pay attention to these things and attend and participate from the beginning. Yes, Matam is there as well till the end, Tabarruk and all that. With all I'm going to discuss a bit more because of the, tomorrow is the last Majlis to really see whether what we have accumulated in these 2 months and 8 days which we'll be having Majalis and Azah as well. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Allama Amini, who wrote Ghadir, he says there were 70,000 members, 70,000 pulpits in the Islamic, nation. And from all of these 70,000 pulpits, cursing Amirul Mu'minin was wajib on a Jummah. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, who was a companion of Rasulullah, he gives a khutbah and then he did not mention. Then Muawiyah writes to him that how come you did not mention? How come you did not curse Amirul Mu'minin? Right? And then he says that if I have those 3 qualities which Hazrat Amir had, I would give everything what I have. In the hadith, the meaning is like, what I want to focus is on these 3 qualities. He says that number 1, the ayat of Mubahila, wa anfusana wa anfusakum, wa abnana wa abnaakum, wa nisana wa nisaakum, Prophet has mentioned that the anfusana here is Amirul Mu'minin. Ali is Nafsur Rasul. How you are asking me to curse? Because these are the ashab of Rasulullah who were at the time of Rasul. Imagine if this sunnah continued, the whole thing will change. If Imam Hasan did not do sul and pointed out to this was going on, and if Imam Hussain haven't given his blood in order to point out to this was the state of the Islamic Ummah, what will happen to Deen? What will happen to Islam? What we kind of look at, for example, the caretakers of Haramain Sharifain, Islam. When it comes to oppression, when it comes to justice, when it comes to support, right? That's number 1, anfusana wa anfusakum. Then the Khaybar, Amirul Mu'minin was given that alam of Khaybar. As he was ill, all that, just to know, just to remind you. Number 3 is that the Hadith-e Manzilat, which is when Rasulullah went to Tabuk, to the battle, and then left Amirul Mu'minin in Medina, And people were mocking Amirul Mu'minin that, oh, they left you, you're alone here, and they left to Tabuk to fight the Romans at that time. And then Amirul Mu'minin came to the Prophet and met him halfway. And he said, this is what they are saying. Then Rasulullah said, your place is like Harun to how it was for Musa. When Musa left, he appointed. This is Hadith Manzilat. And in all of this, and as a matter of fact, just something in the margin, all of the battles of Rasulullah, you would find that Rasulullah pointed out to who is the Khalifa or who is of value. In every battle you will see that. Not just from the point of chivalry or strength, but from the point of view of the relationship of Rasul and Ali. From the relationship of Iman. The Zarbat of Ali, Yawm al-Khandaq, that battle is afzal min ibadat al-Saqalain. In every battle, Rasul or Allah is trying to point out to the maqam of Ali. You would find that. Naturally. Without bias, if we open the books of history. So, 70,000 pulpits. And the curses continues. Imam Hasan says this should stop. You should stop this. This should not happen. This is a common history. It's not like Shia bias history. It's Ibn Hadid Makki in Sharh Najul Balagha, he talks about it. Even he talks about how Joda, who was the wife of Imam Hasan, was used by Muawiyah to poison. He's a Sunni scholar, Mu'tazili. Right. So the curses should stop. That's one of the conditions of the sulh, of the peace. Right. Did it stop? The question is, it did not. But it came on the surface that who is Muawiyah? Who were the rulers of Sham at that time? What type of personalities or individuals they were who portrays themselves, who showed themselves as Muslims and Khalifas of the time? And then the fourth one was that after me, after you, after Muawiyah, the Khilafat should come to Imam Hasan. If he's alive, if he's not, then it should go to Imam Hussein. Very clear. And this was very, very dangerous, or this was something that Muawiyah, was scared of. And that's one of the reasons why he killed Imam Hasan. That he should be able to appoint, Yazid after. Because imagine if there is Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein alive, going against this accord and this pact wasn't really easy. That he appoint, even in his life, even before the death of Imam Hasan, that he appoints. There could be some sort of leeway perhaps, legally speaking. Well, Imam Hasan is not there. Then I can appoint Yazid, for example. It is less of the heaviness is lesser compared to Imam Hasan is there and he died and obviously it goes. But Imam Hasan is not there, okay, it's just Imam Hussein, Plus the damage is done, like 20 years or so. He was the ruler of Sham. And then after, when he becomes Khalifa as well, another 10 years added to it when Imam Hussein was still alive. But look at the sincerity and the beauty amongst the Masumin alayhi salam. Because the sulh was made by Imam Hasan, who was the Imam of the time. Imam Hussein stayed with it till Muawiyah was alive. He didn't do any qiyam. He didn't go against that sulh. Because as we said, the methodology, the understanding of all the Prophet, the Quran, the Prophet, the Imams is all one. Whether that be fourth Imam Zainul Abidin, or whether that be Imam Hussein, or whether that be Imam Hasan or Imam Ali. It's all one. If Imam Zainul Abidin was in a place of the fourth Imam, in the place of Imam Hussein, his father, he would have done the same thing. There's no question of, speaking about or discussing any form of allegiance being given, na'uzubillah, by the fourth Imam, as some of the weak narrations are there to Yazid. I mean, just in the margin, there are weak hadiths in Usul al-Kafi. They are. The point is the question, and the point is compilation of the hadith and preservation of that, even if there be, false hadiths. A researcher will preserve things. Anthropologist would like to preserve things, whatever that may be. So there are weak hadiths in Usul al-Kafi. We never say they are sahih, as our Sunni brother says, the Sahih Sitta. There is hadith that the Quran are 40 sipara. But we know that we all believe nothing is added or subtracted from the Quran. There is 30 sipara. But although that hadith is there, because many times they would like to use this in order to, play with the Shi'i youth and Shi'i mind that, oh, your books are saying, see, they are 40 sipara. That's the way to deal with these type of weak hadiths. Yes, if there is a question that, Imam give bayah, if there be in the books of Shi'i, it's weak. The Hayatul Qulub of Allama Majlisi, it talks about that, the angels came, they took the heart out, they, purified it, and they put it back in Rasulullah. It's your books, it's Majlisi book. Well, it's a weak. Our belief is Awwalu ma khalaqallahi nuri. The first thing God created is the nur of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ma khalaqtu saman mabniya wa ardan madhiya wa qamaran munira. What is all that in Hadith Kisa that we recite in every majlis or any jashan that we begin with? That's our iman, that's our faith. So the point is not to bring in these weak hadiths and, do some sort of character assassination, right? So here, Imam Hasan and Mushtaba says that, that the curses should stop. And he made it clear and unveiled. And one more condition was that some of the indications is that the, south of Iran, the state, whatever the ghanayam, the tax comes about, that should be part to be given to Imam Hasan Mushtaba. From the taxes, it should be given to the Imam. On these conditions, he accepted the soul. And in order to preserve, all of that is for Quran, Sunnah, is all for Amirul Mu'mineen. Is for the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam who were persecuted and injustices were taken against them. I mean, this is how they wanted to deviate the whole thing. They wanted to, the Bani Umayyah, they wanted to hijack the Quran and Islam in their favor. Because the rivalry between the Bani Umayyah and Hashemites was even before the Prophet was born. They were exiled from Mecca in Sham long time ago. Great-grandfather's period, Abdul Manaf and Abdul Shams, that period. And the animosity existed amongst that side of the hemisphere, or that side of the Arab world against the Hashemites. It was in there, from generation after generation. And Muawiyah mobilized that, used that in order to, for his purpose, for his maqsad, and that's what usually happens. Whether that be Muawiyah or whether that be anybody, just to use for one's benefit, a person brings in, reasons in order to rectify oneself. Instead of saying, yes, that is correct, you are right. Accept it and go. And when we accept, we learn and we go further. That's the way. And I will tell you one incident, just happened this afternoon. I was praying with my cousin, and the Janimaz was a bit tilted. This is a lesson to learn. Allah teaches us. Just a little bit tilted. So I use my feet to just make it clear. Just to make it straight, right? Then he said, no, this was not right. You shouldn't be doing that. I said, you are correct. I could even do that to Sajdaga. It's the khak. I walk on the khak in Mashhad or wherever that land is made, in Karbala, for example, technically speaking. So if I'm not corrected and I don't accept doing a little bit of that, which is not correct, according to me, eventually it will go to the point that I will even close the janimaz with my feet, na'uzubillah. And then at the same time I will say, oh, this is, it's not haram, or this is not this, or this is not that. Just for my ego. So in every little thing, there's adab, there's adab, there's adab of majlis, there's adab of, namaz, right? And some of these things it's transferred to us by our, seniors, by our elders. And we have to pay heed to that. Oh, these people are not alim to nahi hai, ye log, as we say, for example, ye log aise hi bolte rehte hain. No. There's something in there. Allah wants this message to reach to you. You have to keep our heart open and learn, right? So these were the 5 conditions with Imam Hasan Mushtaba placed in that peace treaty with him, which led to the unveiling of who he was, which led to the victory, as a matter of fact, of Karbala. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Qiyam was based on this peace treaty that you promised, but you went against it. All of these things which he promised, he went against all of them. If somebody just picks up and look at the history of Imam Hussein, just before and Qiyam and after Qiyam, one will come to the clear understanding of history of Islam. All of them, it was trespass. All of them were not accepted. What he himself said that he will accept. It's clear. In history of Shia and Sunni both, if Shia, you're saying it's maybe biased, look at the Sunni books. You will find that what happened. And it happens to the point where Muawiyah was afraid of Imam Hasan being alive, so he hires the wife of Imam Hasan. Mushtaba was Joda ibn Ash'as Kindi. Ash'as was another special character in history who have hands in the killing of Amirul Mu'mineen as well. And then, the wife, who was the daughter of Ash'as, was promised that she will be given Yazid's hand in marriage and a certain amount of money. And the poison was sent. Imam Hasan was poisoned on different times. And to the extent they say that Imam Hasan would seal his food so that it shouldn't be poisoned. And Joda puts the poison in water and gives it to Imam Hasan Mushtaba. This time the poison was very strong. It affected the liver of Imam Hasan Mushtaba. The time comes near. And here Imam Hasan calls Imam Hussein and he says, "Oh Hussein, I see myself as the last day of this dunya and the first day of Akhirah is beginning for me. That's how I feel right now." And then Zainab is called, Kulsum is called. They all came to the house of Imam Hasan. And the pot was brought for Imam Hussein to vomit. And Zainab sees the chunks of liver in the vomits of Imam Hasan Mushtaba. It was very painful. 47 years of age, Imam Hasan Mushtaba, a young lad, young person, 47. The poison started to affect him. For 3 days, Imam Hasan was in pain. Very similar to his father, for 3 days he was in pain when he was hit by the sword which was dipped in poison. Imam Hasan calls his family members and he calls Qasim ibn al-Hasan, or Qasim, young lad, young boy, he was very young. In the lap of Abul Fazl Abbas, Qasim was brought. And then here Imam Hasan writes a will and put it on the shoulder of Imam Hasan, of Hazrat Qasim, and he says, "This will help you," which was the letter which Hazrat Qasim opens on the day of just before Ashura. We know that. And here finally the zulm is that Imam Hasan says that, "Bury me next to the Prophet." I'm being very brief because the time of Azan is now. Bury me next to the Prophet. And if there be any issues with that, please don't spread or spill any blood for this, because he was anticipating that. And then when the janazah was prepared, the body was prepared, the ghusl kafan shrouded, and the body leaves the house, with the funeral. the tabut leaves the house. And we all know that when the tabut leaves the house, it's not going to come back. And it's not going to come back in the state that it came back. As the body was taken to the grave, near the grave of the Prophet, in order to be buried, then Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, says that this woman who was the wife of the Prophet, known as Aisha, sometimes you come on a camel, sometimes you come on a mule. She came on a mule this time. And he says that your name will be famous because you will be known as coming a woman that who comes on a camel to fight Ali in Jamal, or to stop the burial of the grandson of Rasulullah on a mule. And then Marwan was there, the animosity was there from the battle of Siffin. And then they say, we will not allow this to happen. How come you have allowed the first and second to be buried there? Now you're saying the grandson of the Prophet cannot be buried. And to the extent that they started shooting the arrows on the body of Hasan and Mushtaba. There were 70 arrows stuck to the body of Hasan. And now after this, the janaza was brought back. The body of Imam Hasan and Mushtaba was brought back to the house. I wonder what Zainab, looking at the body of Imam Hasan and Mushtaba in blood. We recently washed, just now we have sent the body with new kafan, and after giving ghusl, the body was gone, now the body is brought. Kulsum and Zainab started to pull the arrows from the body of Imam. As they say, La yawmuka yawm Aba Abdullah, there's no day like the day of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. The body of Imam Hussein was on arrows, and here you have the arrows on the body of Hassan. Because when Imam Hussein fell from the steed, in Ziyarat-e-Nahiya we recite, my salam to the shaheed whose body was not on the horse or not on the ground. It landed on the arrows. Allah lanatullah ala qawmus zalimin sayalamul lazina zalimu ayyamun qalibin yanqalib. باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأجل الأكرم بعدد ما أحاط به المك بمولانا حسن مجتبى عليه السلام. يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا قاضي الحاجات يا كافي المحمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات, especially for Sayyid Muhammad Murtaza ibn Sayyid Zamir Abbas, and also for all of your marhumin, and also for the Shuhada of Gaza and Palestine. Al-Fatiha ma salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.